Hello BookTube, I have a tag video for you today, and that is the summer school tag. I originally saw this on Steve Donahue's channel. I don't believe I've been tagged by anyone, but I liked the concept of this tag, and so I decided to go ahead and do the tag because I thought the questions were interesting, and so here we are. We're just going to jump right into the questions. And the first one is language arts. Tell us about a book you were assigned to read in school. And I think this is supposed to be pre-college, yeah? It's supposed to be like, I don't know, K-12, based on the other questions in this tag, which is unfortunate because the books that I read for school, especially like in high school, none of them were anything that great. When I was a freshman in high school, we read My Antonia by Willa Cather, and that book was fine. Excuse me, that book was fine, but I feel like I don't have the same sort of high school reading experiences that a lot of my peers did. You know, you would think we would have read maybe like some Jane Austen or the Brontes or Frankenstein or Dracula or I don't know. But instead, really the only like classic that we read was My Antonia. We read a little bit of Shakespeare, but it wasn't really explained very well, and the way our teacher like went about trying to like teach Shakespeare was really just dull, and I felt like when I went to college I didn't have a good grasp on Shakespeare because of the fact that I hadn't really had a teacher in high school who was very good at illuminating the subject. One of the worst books, though, that we had to read when I was in high school was a book I have never heard mentioned in all of the years since. This was my sophomore year of high school, and that was Bless the Beasts and Children. I don't even remember who the author is. I should have looked that up, but it doesn't really matter because I remember nothing about this book. And like I said, you never hear anybody talk about it. It's not one of those books anyone ever mentions, but yeah. This is a book that we had to read when I was in high school, and again, I feel like it was worthless because it didn't really do anything to prepare me for college when I ended up going into English. I felt like I had to play catch-up constantly because of the fact that, you know, I hadn't read a lot of the books that my peers had because they weren't assigned to us when I was in high school, and so that was unpleasant, and I'm still kind of bitter about it. I'm not going to lie that I feel like we didn't read anything when I was in high school, and especially not anything of substance. And so many of the books we read, it was, you know, books that nobody talks about, or I've even, you know, really ever heard anyone else mention. So, yeah, language arts when I was in high school was pretty sad. My teachers were terrible. As were my history teachers, but that's a whole other story. Moving on to question number 2 is math. When will I ever use this again? Share a book in which the characters need math skills. I am not a math person. I hated math classes. Math classes kept me off the honor roll when I was in high school. Math classes are part of the reason why I switched my major to English from elementary ed when I was in college, and I can barely do basic math without the aid of a calculator. So yeah, I am not a math person. I work with words for a living. I prefer it that way. I don't really use math in my everyday life. So if your teachers try to tell you that you will, unless you're like an engineer or something, you probably actually won't. But anyway, the book that I picked out for this was Middle Game by Shannon McGuire. In this book, we follow two characters, Roger and Dodger, and Roger is the word or the language-based twin in this book, And then Dodger, who is the girl, she is the numbers based. And everything that she does in her life, she, it revolves around numbers. And so there's this whole juxtaposition there between the two of them. And so, yeah, without Dodger's obsession with numbers, these twins wouldn't work the way Shannon McGuire has them in this book, because she's obsessed, like I said, with mathematics and numbers. All right, question number 3 is science. What was the last science-related book you read? This isn't the last science book, it's the second to last. I picked this one because I don't have a physical copy of the last science book I read. It was a library book. This is also a library book, but it's not due yet, so I still have it. And that was Lab Girl by Hope Jaron. And this is about Hope being a geologist and an academic, and her studying plants and trees and nature and all of that sort of stuff. It was an interesting read. I felt like in a lot of ways it was just as much a commentary on academe as it was talking anything about, science and the natural world that she was studying. I enjoyed it, and so this was my book for question number 3. Question number 4 is social studies. Share a book from your TBR that is translated or deals with the government. And I had to go with Hilary Mantel's The Mirror and the Light. And this, of course, is the 3rd book in Hilary Mantel's trilogy about Cromwell and Thomas Cromwell. And so it deals with, of course, the government and the English history during the time of Cromwell. And I've read both Wolf Hall and Bring Up the Bodies. I haven't yet read this. I need to get on that. So yeah, this was the obvious choice when I was looking at my bookshelves. Because, like I said, it's all about government and politics in England during the time of Henry VIII and Anne and Boleyn and all of them, right? So, Mirror and the Light. Alright, number 5 says Exploratories. Which category of extra non-core classes did you take the most of in high school? And for me, that would be band. I was very much a music person when I was in high school, and I loved band. I loved my high school band director. She was awesome. She's still one of my favorite teachers. And so, yeah, band was definitely my thing in high school. I'm not athletic. I wasn't in sports. And so, yeah, I was definitely a band kid. I took art classes, too, but I didn't necessarily enjoy them. It was just the fact that I went to a really small school, and so we didn't have a lot of options for electives. And so art was sort of the least, onerous to me. And so I took that as well. But, yeah, band was definitely, my preferred non-core class that I took. Common Core. Share a good pairing of a fiction with a non-fiction book. And I think for this question, I would go with any non-fiction book that has to do with talking about the kings and queens of Tudor England, and then also reading the fiction books that Alison Ware has done that follow the 6 queens of Henry VIII. So, yeah, you get a fictionalized version, and then you can also read non-fiction versions of history. Alison Weir writes both, to be honest. But that's the one that really comes to mind in terms of a pairing. Number 7 is research. What was the last topic that inspired you to seek out books so you could read up on it? One of those topics would be genetics. I've talked before on this channel about how much I enjoy reading about genetics. Another would be religion. I am not religious, but I find the history of religion fascinating. and have been reading several books involving like the history of the Bible, and things like that. So that would be another one. And then right now I've been reading a lot of books that revolve around race and issues of race in the United States. So yeah, those are just a few topics. I tend to seek out books to read on a lot of topics. I could name quite a few for that question. Number 8 is, what subject area would you teach if you were a teacher? I actually am a teacher. I am a college English instructor. I teach composition for my university, which I am also an alma mater of. And so, yeah, I teach college freshmen and sophomores how to write. Some days I really love it. Other days it is a real pain. I am dreading the fall because of all of the COVID stuff. It's not going to be pleasant, but it is what it is. So yeah, I am a teacher, and I do teach at the college level, and I teach composition to squirrely little freshmen. Yeah. And then question number 9 asked to share a photo from your school days. Because I suck with editing, I found an actual picture that I'm just going to hold up. And this is from my high school band senior year. As you can tell, very small school, not that many of us. I'm in the front row in the middle in red. I played clarinet. Not the greatest picture, but yeah. And I like how my dad has written on the back here, band 2004 with a question mark. But yeah. That was my favorite part of high school. I didn't enjoy much else about high school, but I did love band. Alright, and then the last question asks you to tag some fellow lifelong learners, and I'm going to leave people in the description down below. So I hope you enjoyed this tag, and even if I don't tag you or you aren't tagged by anyone else, please feel free to do this tag. I would love to see your answers, and I will talk to you again soon. Thanks, BookTube.